time with us. We very much appreciate it. Let's start things off a little light and simple. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Nav Bubber and I work here as the VP of Innovation at Meridian. And so we've just established our own internal innovation hub called MLab. And it's our first year of operation. And we are looking to innovate, more looking particularly at big I innovation. So the new lines of business, new ways of doing business, and looking at entering new markets.
That's awesome. So when you guys, so the big I means you're looking for new ways that you guys can continue to serve your customers while still doing well for Meridian. So what does innovation mean to a company like Meridian? Why is it so important?
I think that's an interesting question. So one, we are a member-owned organization, and whatever we do from making the right investments to launching the right products is for our member base. So it's very important for us to stay relevant in a very competitive market. So for most people, for example, a mortgage is a mortgage. So whether you walk into a bank or a credit union, it's the product, differentiating on the product becomes difficult. So differentiating on service level, however, is totally under our control. So it's about, the idea is to innovate around, as I said, new ways of doing business. So taking maybe the same products, but a different delivery mechanism, providing better features, easier access. So there's different ways of looking at it from a differentiation perspective. In addition, it's about trying to invent the next new service out there, something that somebody has not done before, and a lot of times it's not about so for example, a taxi could get you from point A to point B, but new and better methods came up to do that. For example, with Uber, right? And so we see that kind of disruption is also going to come into the financial services market. So instead of waiting for it to come and disrupt our business, we need to be in the forefront of, I would say, disrupting ourselves and reinventing the way we do business ourselves.
That's great. You talk very passionately about this. What is the idea? It sounds like it's something close to you. Is intrapreneurship important to you? What does it mean to you?
So I come from a business background. I had ran my own small business in India, and when I came here, I had an opportunity to go back to school rather than maybe start driving a taxi. So I went back to Queens, did my MBA, came out of that, and an opportunity to work with a big bank in a very entrepreneurial kind of setting and role. So I had subsequent roles out there which were all entrepreneurial in nature. I would think that in most organizations, because of regulation, bureaucracy, and having done the same thing repeatedly and for over years of time, all these are pretty legacy institutions with hundreds of years of legacy, that it becomes difficult for people to reinvent the business model. So that's one reason why we have established this MLab within the organization. Fortunately, with the internal change in the organization, the new kind of people that are coming in, the mindset of our leaders is all around being entrepreneurial. So taking ownership of whatever service you're providing, whether internally or externally, and doing it better, and all in the interest of the member base we serve. So in my mind, especially MLab operates as a very entrepreneurial unit within Meridian. And the idea is to, to increase awareness of within the organization of what's happening out there, so that we stay in the forefront of whether it's technology or process or new business models, and then embracing some of that and bringing it in. The second focus we have, and I would say maybe even the primary focus, is learning from our peers and from employees within the organization. So we have launched our own ideation management platform within the organization. And the thing there is that there's so many ideas within the organization that don't get captured because there's no forum for them to either submit them or discuss them. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach to increase that entrepreneurial spirit. One is external awareness, and secondly, enabling our internal employees.
That's great. So it sounds like you guys will take ideas from anywhere among the company, which I think is great. So how many people are part of Meridian as a whole, and then how many people are part of your MLab?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Well, we are a 1,700 and 1,750 strong company, so there's around 1,750 employees. MLab is too strong, but as I mentioned, the idea is we want global participation within the organization. So I would say we want all 1,700 to have some role in innovation. So I don't see Meridian as a force of two. I see it as a force of 1,702, where the two of us are helping guide the rest of the organization through the innovation process.
Right. So you bring on different people for different projects depending on what they are, or do you help other departments facilitate doing these innovation projects?
So that's interesting. And so what we do is we collaborate with different units within the organization. To enable that, a very early development was we established a partner panel. It's like I would say it's integral part of MLab, and it has 10 representatives from across the organization. So they help us in both activating the organization, and we leverage their networks, both internal and external, and as well as they provide some form of governance to MLab. But to your, I would say I'd also like to add that the concept here is leveraging internal partners, but at the same time we are forming external alliances. So with universities, other innovation hubs, and where we don't have internal capability, we go out and form some kind of alliance partnership or a contractual agreement to obtain that.
Oh, that's great. So here's a good question then. So if MLab is a team of two, which work with the rest of the company, obviously you can't move forward with every little thing.
Right.
How do you decide on what intrapreneurial ideas to move forward with and which ones to sort of maybe put on a back burner until a later date? Or
so we have a formal evaluation process. So at the MLab level, we are a big funnel. We get hundreds of ideas, people connecting with us to to present their ideas on making us the next great credit union, and or fintechs connecting with us to provide their services. So we act like a filter at the first level and see, based on our strategic mandate, we see what is aligned and what supports that strategic mandate. As a second level, we have a partner panel, which I just mentioned. So we have 10 experts out there from different areas within the organization who further help us evaluate these concepts. And then finally, if we find that there is some scope and there is a compelling reason we should be implementing any of these ideas, we first run a proof of concept. So proof of concept, based on some predetermined success measures, helps us, gauge whether there will be a wider uptake of that service or that business idea we are bringing in. If that performs well at the proof of concept stage, then we will formalize it by way of a formal business case and taking it to executive leadership. But the idea is to do this quickly. So it's not that this process should take 2 years to go from identification. So as I said, we are new. We are right now at the stage of conducting proof of concepts, but those were done in like weeks, not months, right? In detecting something or identifying something and taking it to proof of concept.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's focus on you a little bit here, Nav, because we've heard that you're actually a pretty interesting guy on your own. I hear when you're not leading innovation here, you like to rebuild old cars and you fly planes. Is this true?
Yeah. So I haven't flown a plane in a while. I lost my license because I didn't keep up with it. With the move to Canada, it's been actually over 10 years since I flew a plane, but I did keep up with my car hobby. So after a sabbatical of around 7-8 years, I bought my first wreck and restored it.
Yeah.
And
What was it?
So that was a 66 Impala, which I restored. Okay. So that restoration was completed early 2016. But I just completed a restoration on a 69 Chevelle, which got ready last week. So 2 weeks ago. So that's the latest project.
That's very nice. Do you think that having these sort of diverse hobbies helps to play into your role as a VP of innovation?
I think I have because of these hobbies and a couple of other things I do on the side, is I have a natural inquisitiveness to things, which helps me in probing things and shaking out stuff which is interesting, right? So I have a natural inquisitiveness. I have a natural I would say fondness for building networks. So I have a pretty large network, not only within Canada, but Asia, around the world. And for example, the latest car which I bought, a wreck, because people know I like classic cars. Somebody's friend wanted to sell a car and they called me up, right? And it helped both of us because there was no middle person in the deal. So I think the hobbies do help as well. Hobbies are a great platform because of my hobbies. Currently, cars and my attempt to run one of the longest ultra marathons in the world has built a huge network of people I deal with, right? Whether I'm practicing my running or I'm at a car show. So and you always meet people who are like-minded from similar industries, and that helps to definitely.
So you run ultra marathons also?
Well, I'm going to be running my first formal ultra marathon next year. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. So stuff like doing an ultra marathon or flying a plane, there's a certain level of fear a lot of people probably have to get over. Do you think that like this ability you have to sort of work within these fears and get over them, do you think that helps you in business as well?
Yeah, so I am a natural risk taker to some extent, but after joining and working in banks for 15 years, maybe I became I'm always a risk taker, but I take calculated risks now, right? However, that's an interesting point because when you prepare for extreme sport or whatever extreme, so you become more diligent. For example, when I'm running an ultra marathon, ensure that I've enough nutrition, that I've practiced enough, that I'm following a very regular pattern. Otherwise, you could have an incident, a health incident, or you could not finish the race, right? So I think you get better prepared if you can forecast or anticipate the risk and then prepare for it. The stress part of it, what you just mentioned, is very easily controllable. So one of the things I do is I do yoga and I meditate. So I've learned about meditative running, and you can read about that. It's online all over the place. But that meditative running helps me in completing longer distances when you know that after 40 kilometers, every bone and joint in your body is going to be paining, right? Yeah. So I think part of it is assessing what the situations can be, and then taking measures so that you mitigate them to some extent.
Yeah, no, and that sounds like good advice for both ultra marathons and for creating new things within a business. So let's get a little bit back more to the business, perhaps. I'm curious about how do you inspire people within Meridian to think about innovation and to be entrepreneurs themselves?
So it kind of comes back to participation. So there are a couple of things here. So I'll probably touch on maybe 2 or 3. So one is participation. So to inspire people, you be inclusive. So as I told you, we have launched an ideation management software where we want the whole organization to participate. So when people are participating with you, and you're guiding them, they are naturally motivated and they're inspired to contribute. So very recently, just last week, we had our leadership offsite, and MLab played a great role in, we presented first time to the larger organization what MLab is doing. But we also did another thing. We had a Meridian's first hackathon, Hack to the Future. And, we got voluntary participants, 5 teams of 4 each, 20 people participated, came up with themes, and we guided them through the process. We coached them into, into delivering strong pitches. And while they used their own creativity and came up with very interesting presentations, I think in great part that motivation was because of what we organized and what we coached them to. So I think participation is a key thing. The second is leading by example. So as we go, and build MLab and innovation within Meridian, we need to have some very early wins. So we have picked up some projects out there which are, for example, certain fintechs which have already established themselves and are doing well. So we have partnered with them and we are bringing them in and collaborating with them to co-launch products and services. So what that does is it shows the organization that Meridian is really walking the talk and delivering on some of these innovative ideas out there, right? Whether they are millennial focused or focused to another cohort. So I think that helps in motivating the organization. The third, what we do is very effective communication. So we have launched our own in-house newsletter. And the idea out there is to provide the organization with regular updates on what we are doing. Not only that, we are showcasing employees and our members who are innovative. So in the last issue, we had a member who has launched this new bottle called the Pressa bottle. And the Pressa bottle allows you to squeeze your fruit, because it's become kind of a fad now that people put in lime and all in their water. So it's designed, it's a patented bottle. So we showcase them that, we have a very innovative member there. And people were amazed and they wanted to buy the product, right? So it's about a combination of this participation, leading by example, communication, that we are onboarding our internal employees to innovate.
That's great. You mentioned a ton of my questions, and I think a lot of those traits that you guys are doing are really good examples of what other companies should be doing, because that's something we like to ask a lot is, what do you recommend other companies do? But I'm not sure I'm going to ask you that. We may just tell everybody to follow your example here. Couple more questions though. Intrapreneurs, they're a little bit different than your sort of ordinary, just people who come to work every day type people. What do you think that intrapreneurs have as a certain trait, or need to have as a certain trait to really be successful?
So I wouldn't have a blanket statement that the people are different. Sometimes it's circumstantial, right? So example, I was born in a business family, so the conversation around the dinner table was about the next big thing we should launch as a family or do or buy a business, right? So sometimes it's circumstantial. And but I think for people who you have to get out of your comfort zone, right? So you hear about sometimes people giving up their jobs and getting into a startup mode. You see very few people like that, because it's giving up a paycheck, right? But there are smart ways of doing it. So if you are you really want to do something big in an organization, you're within a unit, if you have a support group like we have MLab, where people can come to us with an idea and we can say, evaluate it. If you don't have that, you can always experiment on the side, right? So you have your regular job. If you go to your boss and say, I have this great idea, what can we do about it? I'm sure if it's got legs, your person you report to is going to find some way that it comes to the notice of the right people, right? So I think one is to speak your mind, especially in our organization. We ensure that we have many levels of I would say formalized meetings and forums where people can express themselves, right? So participate in that, talk about your ideas. And if something is good, I'm sure the organization always wants you to participate in the implementation, because after all, it's your idea. You probably have more things to say or do about that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the primary thing is getting out of your comfort zone. In most organizations today, because of conflicting priorities, people just manage to finish their 8 or 10 hour day, right? And just processing what they need to do,
Yeah.
and they don't get the mind space. So the other good big you see large organizations like Google and Apple, they have like take a day off to a week to think about your next big project, and it doesn't have to be work related necessarily, right? So creating mind space for people within the organization is very important, and then giving them the tools, right? So creating mind space, giving tools, and then listening to them. So if they have an idea, where do they go with it? So I think one of the main reasons and mandates of MLab is to ensure that those 3 or 4 things happen within the organization.
That's great. That's actually fantastic. So before we finish, is there any last advice you would like to pass on to future entrepreneurs and innovators?
Yeah, I guess generally people think that innovation, like the larger banks and all, can afford to do it, so they have big outfits, 300 people in an innovation factory or 400. That's not necessarily required. And in fact, you see most innovation in startups, right? Because they don't have any legacy issues, and they are thinking with a very clean whiteboard, right? A clean slate of mind. But even with mid-size organizations like ours, there is a place for innovation. And innovation doesn't necessarily, a lot of people think innovation means technology, and that's not the case. So today, technology is an enabler for everything. Even if you have a marketing or promotion campaign, you need the technology to achieve it, right? But so innovation can be at different levels. It doesn't necessarily require a lot of resourcing, and it's about a mindset, right? So I think with that advice, I feel that most organizations can be innovative. The other area where I see which is fast developing is collaboration on innovation, where organizations can get together, and they can be competing organizations, it doesn't matter, but they can innovate together, right? And keep themselves ahead of other competition, right? I've also seen models emerging where industries or organizations from different backgrounds are collaborating to innovate, which brings a great diversity in that innovation. So you can have a telecom, a bank, a pharmaceutical company coming together and finding some common ground to innovate, right? So I think that's going to increase more and more with new kind of technologies like blockchain and all coming in, where you will see the borders disappearing, right? And more collaboration coming in.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate you taking the time to do that with us.
Thank you. I hope you had enough time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got 23 minutes of footage.